community in LA County is now having to pay out big after leaving a court case involving discrimination against young atheists. Now, the particular way that they were trying to do this was that in a publication listing all the different sorts of scholarships that you could apply for in this area, there was proposed to be one by the Antelope Valley Freethinkers and Freedom from Religion Foundation. They wanted to do some scholarships, and they had a writing prompt that you could fill out to apply for it. And the school thought, maybe not so much for the atheists. The district said it was rejecting the scholarships because the essay announcements would upset parents, claiming that they appeared to promote anti-religious expression and had aggressive and argumentative undertones towards religion. So, aggressive and argumentative. Okay, well, let's evaluate that right now. I'm going to read the writing prompt in full. It's a little bit long, I apologize. But we want to see if this was so violent, so aggressive in its tone, that it simply had to be stopped. That the kids could not benefit from getting this scholarship if they felt like they were free thinkers and wanted to get this money. So, a free thinker is someone who develops opinions based on science and reason in contrast to faith and dogma, which seems accurate, but I can understand why you wouldn't like that if you were on the side of faith and dogma. Write from a personal perspective encounters you've had when you object to or raise logical or evidence-based challenges to statements of faith or dogma within your family, your school, or the Antelope Valley at large. So, not when you fought with them or you made them look stupid, but when you raised logical or evidence-based challenges to statements of faith. Perhaps you've been ridiculed, harassed, or punished for speaking up against religion in the classroom, at school events, in government, or within your family. Perhaps you've been successful in convincing others of your position. Discuss the effects on you and those around you as you've dealt with those encounters. So, that is described as being too aggressive. I look at that, and I read that, and I think, this is getting a kid to talk about the experience he's had as someone who's probably distinct from most of the people in his school, certainly from a lot of the authority figures, teachers, his family, and all of that, who might be growing up in an area where the way that he thinks about the world and his devotion to understanding the world around him and not simply accepting whatever is in some 1,000-year-old book, that's a mature way of looking at your life experiences and expressing them to another person. Emphasizing, of course, logic and evidence, which is supposed to be the whole point. After all, this is a school scholarship. And so you'd think that the logic and the evidence would matter. And no, they didn't like it. Of course, the school didn't want to do that. So there was a court case, and as a result now, they're paying $10,000 in legal fees, and the scholarships will now be allowed, which is, of course, what we want. But we can't simply look at the fact that the court case ended up right and say, oh, well, then everything is great in the world. It doesn't suck at all to be a free thinker or an atheist or secular or whatever the hell you want to call it. This is just one little piece, and it's so perfect that it's happening to the kids. One little piece of evidence of what it's like to grow up when you think a little bit different, when you are trying to evolve a little bit past the way we thought when we were in the Bronze Age or something like that. These are kids who have fought against the dogma that has been piled on them in many cases since before they can even remember thinking. And they have somehow gone beyond it. And they're not just being smug little shits. If that's what the writing prompt was about, I wouldn't be in favor of it either. But it's specifically about trying to persuade using logic and evidence, not simply emotional appeals or appeals to authority. That's supposed to be what we're getting out of a school. But these kids are going to be reminded in this little way, even knowing that the court case had to happen, that they're not the same and their scholarships aren't valued in the same way. And you've applied for these scholarships. Think about the stupid little scholarships that they do allow and don't have a problem with. I won almost $1,000 in high school writing an essay about what it meant to me to grow up Italian in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Now, I'm Italian and I grew up in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Is that really core to my identity? Did writing about that really talk about how I interface with the world and my value system and how I seek to learn more about the universe that I've been born into? No, it was shallow shit by comparison. But this, that would actually cause kids to think about the world, to think about their place in the world, their place vis-a-vis other people who think differently, that had to be shut down. No, man, changes need to happen. And I'm not blind. I'm not naive about how this is going to go down. And I understand that the changes already are happening. Being an atheist in America today is different than it was 10 years ago, certainly 50 or 100 years ago. It is better, and we are evolving. We are changing. But not in the same way that a lot of other groups are. A lot of other groups that have been discriminated against, sometimes in far worse, more obvious ways, there's an understanding of the struggle that with atheists doesn't exist. And it's sort of funny to discriminate against them. Nobody really cares at the end of the day, and that fundamentally needs to change. And one way that can change is if you're a kid and you notice this sort of discrimination going on at your school, you need to bring it up to someone who understands, perhaps an organization like the Freethinkers of Antelope Valley, some equivalent in your city. If you're a parent and you have kids that are freethinkers, atheists, secular, humanists, then you have to make the school as afraid of you as they are afraid of all the different traditional religious groups. Because that's why they pull this shit, is because they're scared of the parents coming in and making a big stink about it. Well, if that's what we have to do as atheists, then we should be willing to make a stink about it as well. Because kids should not be being taught from such a young age that there's something wrong with them, and that their interests and the way that they think and their life experience isn't as important as every other kid in that goddamn school. Because that's 100% wrong.